The Committee on Homeland Security will come to order. Without objection, the chair may declare the committee in recess at any point. The purpose of this hearing is to receive testimony on the Biden-Harris border policies and how they have undermined the safety and security of America. I now recognize myself for an opening statement. President Joe Biden has appointed Border Czar Vice President Kamala Harris and Department of Homeland Security Secretary Alejandro Mayorkas have sparked the worst border crisis in American history. Looking back over the nearly 4 years, Americans have witnessed a national security, public safety, and humanitarian disaster at our borders. And every day, we continue to feel its devastating consequences. The flood of inadmissible aliens across our sovereign border has been unprecedented. Since Biden-Harris' first full month in office, Customs and Border Protection has recorded more than 10.3 million encounters of inadmissible aliens nationwide, compared to 3.1 million between fiscal years 2017 and 2020. In addition, there have been more than 2 million known gotaways on their watch, illegal aliens who are at large in our communities, whose intentions and backgrounds are completely unknown. Encounters at our ports of entry have exploded from roughly 1 million between fiscal 2017 and 2020 to more than 3 million since the start of fiscal year 2021. That's largely because the Biden-Harris administration has devised a host of unlawful mass parole programs that encourage otherwise inadmissible aliens to cross at our land, sea, and airports instead of between them. This solves the terrible optics problem of overcrowded Border Patrol facilities and overwhelmed agents, but the end result is the same: tens of thousands of inadmissible aliens released into the interior of the country every month against the laws passed by this institution. It's just a shell game, a sleight of hand to skew the numbers. It's like when a parent tells their children to clean their room only to find the mess simply moved from the floor to the closet. Things might look cleaner, but the underlying problem has not been addressed. So it is with the Biden-Harris administration's border policies. Other numbers further highlight this crisis. Tragically, roughly 200,000 Americans have died from fentanyl that has been smuggled across the southwest border by criminal cartels. Border Patrol arrests of illegal aliens with criminal backgrounds have more than doubled on the Biden-Harris watch, from around 22,000 to more than 53,000. Apprehensions of Chinese nationals crossing the southwest border illegally exceed 36,000 just this fiscal year, more than FY07 through 20 combined. These are major national security and public safety concerns. This unprecedented surge across our borders was made possible by the Biden-Harris administration. In 2019 and 2020, Biden and Harris both declared they supported decriminalizing border crossings. Biden said that suspected criminal illegal aliens arrested by local law enforcement should not be handed over to ICE, contrary to the law. Harris called building more border wall systems, quote, a stupid use of money, end quote. Biden encouraged illegal aliens to surge to our border, his word, to flood our asylum system with illegitimate claims. Their open borders and anti-enforcement rhetoric soon became a reality. Upon assuming office, Biden-Harris worked immediately to end effective border security policies and to dismantle decades of bipartisan immigration enforcement. For example, Biden and Harris have gutted detention. For example, in fiscal year 2013, the Obama administration detained 91% of all illegal aliens, 82% of them from the time they were encountered until the case was resolved. In Biden and Harris's first year in office, that 82% dropped to just 10%. Removals have also plummeted from more than 267,000 in fiscal year 2019 to around half that number last year and as low as 59,000 in fiscal year 21. Even worse, removal of criminal aliens plummeted from around 173,000 in fiscal year 2019 to just 70,000 last fiscal year. And just yesterday, prominent border correspondent Allie Bradley reported exclusive ICE figures showing that since Biden-Harris administration ended Title 42 in May 23, the administration has only removed around 23% of all inadmissible aliens encountered. Despite the limitations put on them by the leaders, the men and women of CBP and ICE have continued to perform their jobs above and beyond the call of duty, and I commend them for their unwavering service to the nation. Yet they know it's not supposed to be this way. Today, you will no doubt hear more blame shifting and excuses by my colleagues across the aisle, but all of it is meant to mislead. You'll probably hear about the recent drop in illegal border crossings between ports of entry along our southwest border. However, this does not account for the thousands of inadmissible aliens coming in daily through the ports of entry under the scheme I described earlier, nor does it undo the damage done by the millions that have come in over the past 3.5 years. This evidence also suggests no connection between Biden's recent loophole-ridden executive order and these new numbers, but rather stepped up interior enforcement by Mexico. And as we saw recently, that enforcement is waning, with the Mexican government now busing CBP-1 appointment holders from the southern Mexico border straight to the southern U.S. border. Coming almost 4 years into this self-inflicted crisis, the administration's action is much too little and far too late. For numerous families across the country, like those of Rachel Morin, Laken Riley, Joycelyn Nagunri, the damage will never be undone. You certainly won't hear how the Senate's border bill, which just a single Republican helped write, would have made the crisis worse. It would have only allowed tough restrictions once encounters passed several thousand per day, mandated mass releases through non-custodial detention, improperly expanded the use of parole, and more. It was a terrible bill, one that was roundly criticized by former heads of CBP and Border Patrol and ICE. Today's hearing is about getting the unvarnished truth from Americans who have been forced to live out the Biden-Harris open borders nightmare in their own lives. This administration has completely undermined border security through a host of policies and decisions that have overwhelmed and sidelined the Border Patrol. Biden and Harris have gutted ICE's ability to conduct immigration enforcement in the interior, making it harder to detain and remove illegal aliens, including criminal illegal aliens. And innocent Americans are suffering as a result. The story you will hear from Patty Morin today is sadly just one of tens of thousands of stories of pain, suffering, and preventable tragedy. What you will hear from Jim Desmond is the account of a major American city that has been overwhelmed and overrun. It does not have to be like this. Later today, my committee will release a comprehensive report documenting in even more painful, objective detail how Biden, Harris, and their administration have thrown open our borders and the chaos that has resulted. I encourage all Americans to read it at homeland.house.gov. As we continue to witness Biden and Harris's resistance to doing anything meaningful about this disaster, we have to ask why. Why did they let this crisis take place, and why have they let it continue? I hope this hearing provides some answers and inspires President Biden and Vice President Harris to do what they so far have refused to, end this crisis and secure our borders. I now recognize the ranking member, the gentleman from Mississippi, Mr. Thompson, for his opening statement.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman. I welcome our witnesses this morning. But before I start, I want to begin by expressing my appreciation to the Secret Service for their work protecting President Trump over the weekend. There's no place for political violence in our country, and I'm thankful former President Trump was unharmed. Turning to today's topic, I want to start by discussing the situation unfolding in Springfield, Ohio. In recent days, the Springfield community has received at least 33 bomb threats against schools, hospitals, and city facilities because of false rumors about Haitian immigrants abducting and eating pets in their community. Elementary schools have been evacuated, residents are understandably shaken, and Governor Mike DeWine has deployed state troopers to reassure the community. The governor has tried to dispel the false rumors, saying, quote, "There's no evidence at all of anyone eating a dog or Haitian doing any of that. These Haitians that are there are legal. They work every day very, very hard," unquote. City officials have also repeatedly refuted the lies. Yet former President Trump and running mate J.D. Vance have pushed the false rumors, with the former president saying, quote, "They're eating the dogs, the people that came in, they're eating the cats," unquote. Apparently aware the rumors are false, J.D. Vance nonetheless tried to justify, quote, "creating stories," unquote, on the matter. Anti-immigrant rhetoric and racist tropes should have no place in our public discourse. They are un-American, and too often they have helped fuel real-world violence against immigrants and minority communities across the country. We recently observed the 5th anniversary of the Walmart attack in El Paso, Texas. A self-described white nationalist targeted a Hispanic community along the border, shooting and killing 23 innocent people and injuring 22 more. Tragically, similar violent ideology led to deaths of 10 shoppers in a predominantly African-American community in Buffalo and 11 members of the Tree of Life Synagogue in Pittsburgh. We have an obligation to be responsible with our rhetoric as we discuss border security and immigration. And then there is, in fact, a lot to discuss, from the Biden-Harris administration's successful efforts to bring down the number of unlawful border crossings to the ongoing need for congressional action to fix our broken immigration system and provide more border security resources. While you probably won't hear it from those on the other side, border encounters are at their lowest level in years. Since the president's proclamation on June 4th, encounters along the border and ports of entry have decreased by 55%, with Border Patrol recording the lowest number of border encounters since September 2020. The Biden-Harris administration has also removed more than 92,000 individuals to more than 130 countries and conducted over 300 international repatriation flights. Total removals and returns over the last year exceed the total removals and returns for any year since 2010. The administration has also decreased the number of people released from detention pending their immigration removal proceedings by 70%. Meanwhile, Customs and Border Protection has seized more fentanyl than the last 5 years combined, keeping the dangerous drug from reaching our streets. None of these administration actions are a substitute for congressional actions to fix our immigration system and provide resources to law enforcement on the border. Only Congress can do that, and it is our responsibility to act. Unfortunately, my colleagues on the other side have refused to move legitimate border security legislation, all Congress. At the direction of former President Trump, Republicans blocked the Senate bipartisan border deal, and they are refusing to move necessary border security funding. Republicans don't want border security solutions. They want a political issue. Don't believe me? Well, they themselves have admitted putting partisanship over progress. As one GOP member of Congress said, he's not willing to, quote, too damn much right now to help a Democrat. Why would I? That's Washington at its worst. Former President Trump has now called for the largest deportation program in U.S. history, with so-called concepts of a plan to deport 11 million undocumented migrants, quote, following the Eisenhower model, unquote. The Eisenhower model, more commonly known by a name that includes an ethnic slur, which I won't repeat here, was a mass deportation begun in 1954 that rounded up more than 1 million immigrants, as well as brown-skinned American citizens. The former president even suggested using the military to sweep people under his plan, which would cause chaos in border communities, destroy millions of American families, and leave critical sectors of our economy, like agriculture, without the workers they need. Instead of partisan fear-mongering and dystopian deportation plans, we need real solutions about how we can strengthen border security, fix our immigration system, and grow our economy while upholding our American values. Sheriff Hathaway, an enforcement officer on the border, former DEA agent, and a fifth-generation Arizonian, I look forward to your insights today. I know you take great pride in your beautiful, safe community and have said that the immigrants who live there are family-oriented people of faith. I want to hear about what Congress can do to support you in your work. I welcome all of our witnesses and thank you for being here today. Mr. Chairman, I yield back.
Thank you, Ranking Member. Other members of the committee are reminded that opening statements may be submitted for the record. I'm pleased to have an important panel of witnesses before us today, and I ask that our witnesses please rise and raise your right hand.
If you've ever dreamed of owning an apartment complex and you live near one of these cities, then you've got to see the same ad that.
Do you solemnly swear that the testimony you will give before the Committee on Homeland Security of the United States House of Representatives will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God? Let the record reflect that the witnesses have answered in the affirmative. Thank you. Please be seated. I'd now like to formally introduce our great panel of witnesses. Aaron Heike served as an agent with the United States Border Patrol for over 25 years before retiring in July of 2023. During his time with the Border Patrol, he was stationed in Arizona, Minnesota, Maine, Washington, D.C., Montana, North Dakota, and California. He held multiple positions to include Patrol Agent in Charge, Associate Chief and Deputy Chief Patrol Agent, before finishing his career as Chief Patrol Agent of Grand Forks Sector and San Diego Sector. Mr. Heike earned a Bachelor of Science degree in Criminology from the University of Minnesota at Duluth and a Juris Doctorate degree from the University of North Dakota School of Law. Ms. Patty Morin was born in New York City and has 6 children. She was a stay-at-home mom for 25 years and homeschooled her children. She returned to the workforce after the oldest child graduated high school and entered the mortgage banking industry for 6 years. She then pivoted and spent 10 years in retail management until she retired. She is currently retired and works part-time as an office administrator for a church while living in Maryland. She is the mother of Rachel Morin, who was tragically murdered August of 2023. Mr. Jim Desmond is a San Diego County Supervisor, a U.S. Navy veteran, and a retired 33-year Delta Airlines pilot and captain. The San Diego County Board of Supervisors oversees a region that spans over 4,200 square miles, and it includes 70 miles of Pacific coastline and shares a 60-mile international border with Mexico. With a population exceeding 3 million, San Diego County is the 5th most populous in the United States, presenting diverse challenges and opportunities. As supervisor, Jim plays a crucial role in shaping policies impacting the county's urban and rural communities. Prior to serving as county supervisor, Mr. Desmond served for 12 years as the mayor of San Marcos, California, in San Diego County. He has served on many local communities and commissions in his roles as county supervisor and mayor. Sheriff David Hathaway is the sheriff of Santa Cruz County, Arizona. After graduating from the University of Arizona, he started his law enforcement career as a deputy sheriff with the Santa Cruz County Sheriff's Office. He then embarked on a federal law enforcement career and worked in multiple DEA offices in the United States and in foreign countries, where he occupied various supervisory positions. His last assignment before retiring was as the head of the DEA office in Nogales. I thank all our witnesses for being here today, and I now recognize Mr. Heike for 5 minutes to summarize his opening statement.
Mr. Chairman, distinguished members, thank you for this opportunity. The only true consequence we have to slow down and discourage people from coming into the United States illegally is sending them back to their country of origin. Throughout the first 3+ years of this administration, I saw a steady decrease in the countries we could send people back to. For the first time in my 25 years and under 5 different administrations, whether through neglect or on purpose, I saw a large-scale lapse in our ability to return people to their country of origin. The inability to send people home meant that most people being arrested for illegal entry would either have to be detained or released. The current administration, however, from day one, made a point of decreasing the amount of detention space available nationwide. Immigration and Customs Enforcement's funding for detention has steadily been cut and private detention eliminated. The fact that so many illegal aliens are being released into the United States spread worldwide very quickly. As this happened, the numbers the Border Patrol encountered illegally crossing the border increased exponentially. The impact to me and my agents were significant. Sectors were ordered to take in and process all the illegal aliens encountered on the border. The Border Patrol saw groups of hundreds and thousands coming into the United States and turning themselves in. These numbers pulled 80, 90, sometimes 100% of the agents on duty away from the border. Border Patrol zones across Texas, Arizona, and California had no agent presence for weeks and months at a time. Those who did not want to be caught could simply walk in. We have no idea who and what entered our country over this time. Throughout 2022 and 23, I sent agents to Texas and Arizona to count gotaways. Those sectors could not even put enough agents in the field to see what they'd missed. Simultaneously, in San Diego, we had an exponential increase in significant interest aliens. These are aliens with significant ties to terrorism. Prior to this administration, the San Diego sector averaged 10 to 15 SIA arrests per year. Once word was out the border was far easier to cross, San Diego went to over 100 SIAs in 2022, well over that in 2023, and even more than that registered this year. These are only the ones we caught. At the time, I was told I could not release any information on this increase in SIAs or mention any of the arrests. The administration was trying to convince the public there was no threat at the border. Fentanyl is another issue. The San Diego area sees between 80 and 90% of the methamphetamine and fentanyl seizures annually for our entire country. With little enforcement at the border, these drugs were coming through en masse. During my last year in San Diego, the price for a single pill of fentanyl, for example, went from $10 to 25 cents. To make matters worse, during 2022 and 23, I had to shut down San Diego traffic checkpoints, which are critical for drug interdiction, because the resources had been diverted to the process and release mission. The large numbers also had and still have a negative impact on the San Diego community. I had to release illegal aliens by the hundreds each day into communities who could not support them. To quiet the problem, 2 flights a week were provided from San Diego to Texas. These flights simply brought aliens that would have been released in San Diego over to Texas. Each flight cost approximately $150,000. This was the administration's way to try and quiet the border-wide crisis. Once these flights were stopped and the releases continued, California saw the true economic impact. I received calls from the governor's office, local mayors, and hospital administrators asking me if we could keep injured aliens in custody so the federal government would pay the medical bills. Through pressure from the administration, my headquarters became more interested in the fiction that being portrayed in the media and not at all concerned with reality. Each time we asked for help in dealing with a new issue, it fell on deaf ears. At times in San Diego, we had 2,000 or more aliens sitting in between the fences asking to turn themselves in. I was told to move them out of sight of the media. Meanwhile, Border Patrol agents are continually forgotten and neglected by the media and this administration. These agents deal with death, women and children that have been raped, abused, trafficked, bought and sold, families that have spent months in terrible conditions, sickness, and despair. If you look at the dramatic rise in the number of suicides within the Border Patrol, it is directly correlated with the migrant surge. The agents have been pushed beyond their limit, and this has greatly impacted their physical and mental health. While current numbers of aliens crossing our border are lower in comparison in recent months, there's a reason for this. After nearly 4 years, this administration finally started to ask Mexico for help in slowing down the traffic through their country. This and other actions make a difference, but why has it taken so long? All of these tactics were being used before this administration took office, but this administration stopped or greatly limited them. I'm also concerned this will not be maintained. The problems we are facing at the border have solutions. These solutions can be quite simple and cost far less than the mess currently occupying so much time and money. The return to a policy of enforcing the law and returning illegal aliens to their home countries is required. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Heike. I now recognize Ms. Moran for 5 minutes to summarize her opening statement.
Thank you, Chairman, ranking members, and Congressmen. I appreciate this opportunity to tell Rachel's story. It started August 6th, 2023. I was in Kentucky. We had a grandbaby that had just passed away from sudden infant death. We got the phone call, and the phone call went something like this. Hello, Mom. There's somebody here that'd like to speak to you. Okay. Hello? Hello, Mrs. Moran. This is Detective so-and-so. There's no easy way to tell you this. We found your daughter's body. I had just learned a few hours earlier that she was missing. We didn't know she was missing. She went on a trail in our town that's very public, very small, and we've walked it for over 25 years. She grew up walking this trail. An illegal immigrant that was a gotaway from El Salvador had waited for her on the trail. I was told that they grabbed her, dragged her through the woods, raped her, strangled her, murdered her. We were told that her body was blanketed in bruises. And I can tell you from looking at her when I went to the funeral home that it was probably the most graphic thing that I've ever seen. These murders are very horrendous. He then stuffed her into a drain pipe. So when the detective called and he said, Mrs. Moran, we found your daughter's body, you know that she's dead. It was such a complete shock to our whole family. It took 10 months for them to find this a suspected illegal immigrant. They used DNA because this man had attacked a 9-year-old and her mother in Los Angeles. If they had done the border protocols that were in place, but was set aside of just a simple DNA swab, they would have known that he had a Interpol warrant for murder in his home country, and that's why he was fleeing to the United States. They say that the borders are safe. We live 1,800 miles away from the southern border. They're not safe. They're not safe. If you have a sanctuary city in your state, you're not safe. I just traveled up to New England. That's where I hail from, so I could just go get some rest. And I was surprised by the amount of immigrants from the Sudan and Congo, tens of thousands that are up there. We have them coming in our northern border. We're not safe. And I just hope and pray that you will listen to what we have to say. I'm trying to make my statement as short as I can so I don't cry. Rachel was, when she was a little girl, she was like a little spitfire, tiny little redhead. As an adult, she was this like vibrant, vivacious, outgoing person. Everybody just loved to know her. She was so compassionate and kind. She had a stammering problem, so she understood what it was like to be made fun of as a kid. So she was very compassionate towards people. She was a mom to 5 children. She was a businesswoman. She liked to exercise. She's the American mom. And she's not the only one in our cities that have been murdered. There was another murder by an illegal immigrant from El Salvador that happened a year before. And that person was just pleaded guilty to 4 murders, 2 rapes, and numerous other crimes. They are bringing criminals into our country. They are allowing them into our smallest towns, and our people are dying. There is a video that we'd like to play. I'll just finish my statement. Apparently it's not working. So I just want to take the time to thank you for allowing me to be here and to speak my daughter's story. And I had planned other things, but it is what it is.
Well, hopefully we get it. Are we close to getting it figured out, your team? We'll definitely do that.
Okay, thank you very much.
Yeah, we'll get it played here. Hopefully they'll figure that out.
Okay, thank you very much.
Yep. Thank you, Ms. Moore. I now recognize Mr. Desmond for 5 minutes to summarize his opening statement.
Well, thank you, Mr. Chairman, for the opportunity to speak today. From September of 2023 to June of 2024, over 155,000 adult, prominently males, were between the ages of 18 to 35 who crossed our border illegally, were bused and dropped onto the streets of San Diego County. That's an average of almost 600 per day, 7 days a week for 9 months. No community, no county, no country can sustain that type of an invasion of people crossing our borders illegally and being released into our communities without proper screening or vetting. I saw firsthand large vans and buses driven by Border Patrol agents pull into a San Diego County transit station and unload hundreds of people at a time. People who had just hours ago illegally crossed our borders, stepped off a shuttle and were free to go into our communities, ahead of anyone legally trying to enter our country. The first question for many people that I approached at the In Jacumba, California, a small border community about 50 miles east of San Diego, I came upon an early morning encampment of approximately 50 people who illegally crossed the border the night before. They were waiting for the Border Patrol to pick them up and process them and then potentially be dropped in our streets. One man from India, traveling with his friends, said he paid $8,000 to an entity in India for the unimpeded passage across our southern border. That same morning in Jacumba, a Border Patrol agent told us that a group was coming across the border within the next half an hour. Soon, a black Suburban on the Mexico side of our broken fence sped across a dirt road, stopped, and dropped off about a dozen people, and then sped away. Men, women, and children wearing backpacks and pulling luggage crossed our border illegally, merely walking through a hole in the fence, approached the Border Patrol agent and asked for asylum. Our Border Patrol has been reduced to processing agents, standing by, watching people break our laws. One officer told me with deep frustration, that his orders from the federal government were clear. Stand down, do not engage, just process. What's more alarming is what my team saw later was dozens of Chinese nationals dragging luggage down dirt roads at night. And this is not an isolated incident. This is a daily reality in San Diego County. Border Patrol has become their Uber driver from the border into the city of San Diego, and San Diego County has become their nationwide travel agents at the taxpayers' expense. San Diego County itself, we spent $6 million to set up a migrant receiving center to assist those dropped here, to move them more quickly to other parts of the country. These were local dollars that could have been spent on roads, infrastructure, and parks. Migrants slept in San Diego Airport. They stay in our homeless shelters, and our hospital and healthcare systems are strained. But what concerns me even more is our safety as a community and a country. Border Patrol agents do not have the time or resources or the proper ability to properly vet millions coming across our borders. I have witnessed and have brought samples of torn and shredded legal ID cards and passports that Mexico requires and we do not. These remnants and ID cards are left on the ground within the first few steps into the US. With no documentation, our agents cannot be sure of their countries of origin, restricting background checks and jeopardizing our safety. What really keeps me up at night are the gotaways, the one who illegally cross our borders, who don't ask for asylum. They bypass our Border Patrol. They come onto our shores, smuggling children and drugs by jet skis and boats. Boats are literally driven onto our beaches, abandoned, and the occupants run into our communities unimpeded because we are a sanctuary state. We have no idea who they are, where they're going, what their intentions are. They come and poof, disappear, making our county and our country unsafe. I want to close with a warning for those here today. Most of the people crossing the border illegally do not stay in San Diego County. We're the doormat. They disperse across the country. They are headed to states and cities across the United States with potentially very dangerous nationwide implications. The Biden-Harris administration created this mess, and they refuse to acknowledge it. The administration is not properly vetting the millions of people let into our communities, and they are making our border counties and our nation unsafe. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Desmond. I now recognize Sheriff Hathaway for 5 minutes to summarize his opening statement.
Thank you, Chairman Green and Ranking Member Thompson, for inviting me to testify to your committee. I am the sheriff of a county in Arizona, a border county. My county has the largest ports of entry with Mexico. Of all the border counties in Arizona, a large commercial port of entry, 2 large pedestrian ports of entry, a passenger vehicle port of entry, a railroad port of entry. So we have the largest volume of movement of any border county in Arizona. And our community is very safe. Crime rates are low. Crime rates are lower than the average for the state of Arizona, lower than Tucson, lower than Phoenix. But I do have concern over the growing police state and surveillance state in the U.S. Border Patrol has what is called extended border search authority. We call this the Constitution-free zone. Any area within 100 miles of the international border, Border Patrol does not need to have probable cause to search, to detain you, to interrogate you. And this includes 2/3 of the population of the US, cities like San Francisco, Los Angeles, New York, Seattle, Washington, D.C., Miami, Houston. But our border community is safe, but there are things that Congress can do, and you need to act. If you don't act, presidential administrations will use executive action to solve these problems. In the current and the former administration, the executive branch is incentivized to come up with solutions because Congress has not acted. We have talked for years about comprehensive, immigration reform. There are things that can be done. First of all, we need to have a robust guest worker program. Title VIII needs to be revamped. Title VIII is the umbrella United States code that covers all aspects of immigration, asylum, visas. I have empathy for our federal partners because they don't know what they're allowed to do. They don't know, do we still have work visas, student visas, tourist visas? All the protocols with everything to do with the border are unclear. This is something Congress needs to define, make these hard decisions. And the asylum program is not the answer. Asylum was meant to be a little piece of the pie of Title VIII, for rare circumstances. Asylum, it's become the de facto way of issuing work permits, but asylum seekers can't even work for the first 6 months they're in the country. Canada is smart and they've realized, hey, they've imported tens of thousands of cleared asylum seekers into Canada to work there because they can't work here. They have the same problem we do. They have an aging population, they lack younger workers, and they've taken advantage of this kind of broken system to get more workers into their country. So I want to keep my 5 minutes simple here. Two clear takeaways that I think Congress needs to do so that the executive branch isn't incentivized to take action. One is a guest worker program. Make that clear, articulate that, figure that out. Consider things like the Farm Modernization Act that has languished for years. There has been pressure from the business community on both sides of the aisle, Republican and Democrat, to pass the Farm Modernization Act that would allow more H-2A agricultural visas. My family is a ranching family. We've been in the border of Arizona for 5 generations. It was a lot easier for my grandfather to hire somebody from Mexico if American workers weren't available. But now it's unclear what the protocols are for getting work permits. Another thing that's needed, and this was in the bipartisan border bill that wasn't passed, is immigration judges right at the border. And this was in the bill. There were some things in that bill I did not agree with. But if we're going to be, infatuated with the idea everyone needs a piece of paper to approve before they can do a voluntary interaction with an American, well, get the officials right at the border that can make those decisions. The bipartisan border bill actually had in it the paralegals, the immigration judges, and the staff so that people can come up to the border, present their piece of paper, make their claim, and if the answer is yes, it's yes. If the answer is no, it's no. And this is not a Democrat versus Republican issue. In the 80s, 90s, and 2000s, you had record years, over 1 million. This included Democrat and Republican administrations. And then there was a 14-year lull after that included all 8 years of Obama, last 2 years of Bush Jr., and all 4 years of Trump. So this is a cyclical thing, and I think it's disingenuous to try to paint it as a Democrat versus Republican thing. My time's up, so thank you.
Thank you. Members will be recognized by order of seniority with an exception granted due to some scheduling issues today as necessary for their 5 minutes of questioning. An additional round of questioning may be called after all members have been recognized. I now recognize myself for 5 minutes of questioning. Mr. Heike, you served.
Looking for a promising career in IT? Did you know that IT positions will grow by 33%?
As the last job, you were the sector chief of one of our 9 Southwest border sectors. And I think you said you worked for 25 years in the Border Patrol under 5 different administrations. And looking at your statement, you said this was the first time under 5 administrations, whether through neglect or on purpose, I saw large-scale lapses in our ability to return people to their country of origin. You then went on and talked about detention and how detention bed space was intentionally decreased and private detention was essentially done away with. You said that word got out and then the masses came, essentially. I'm paraphrasing you. But I want to go back to your comment about whether it was neglectful or purposeful, because if you intentionally stop returning people, that's not something you just, you neglect. And you intentionally decrease detention, those things that actually decrease the incentive for people to come here. That sounds purposeful to me. So would you answer? I mean, do you think it's neglect, or do you think this was purposeful, designed to be this way?
I believe that the actions were purposeful, yes, sir. Many people don't understand that we can't simply fill a plane full of nationals from a certain country and fly them home. It takes agreements with that country. It takes diplomacy with the State Department. to make those arrangements. And they're long-term arrangements. It takes diplomacy over months and years.
But purposeful.
But purposely.
Purposeful. Okay. So you mentioned too that there were massive periods of time when the border was just left completely open because the agents had to be pulled and you were directed to do this. And how long were those agents just completely off the border and miles of the border wide open?
There were weeks and even months at a time between Texas and parts of Arizona and California.
And I assume that's, we want to look at these 8 ISIS folks that were caught in New York. I guess some of them actually crossed at a crossing. They filled out the CBP-1 app, 3 of them, and came into the country and were going to blow up an LGBTQ place in Philadelphia. But I mean, those people that crossed during that time, any guarantees that they're not out there to do harm to the country?
No, sir, no guarantees.
Yeah, you agree with the FBI director then. You mentioned twice in your testimony too, I find it fascinating that because it was overwhelming San Diego, the administration actually created, for the cost of $150,000, plane flights to Texas of all these people, as a way to keep it quiet. And then you mentioned too, there was one point where you had like 2,000 aliens and the administration directed you to like move them out of sight of the media. Can you kind of clarify that a little bit?
Yes, sir. Groups were coming in to turn themselves over faster than we could keep up. We only had so much space. We keep people within our stations. There's no other place to put them in while they're being processed. And they were building up. The media was showing them sitting in between the fences, and it looked bad, and they wanted them moved. I had no place to put them, and so they simply told me.
Why would they want to hide that? Why wouldn't they want the world to know what's going on? Why would they want to hide that? Why would they want to spend $150,000 to fly them to Texas to keep people from seeing the mass waves? Why?
It looks bad. When I asked about the flights to Texas, I was very specifically told there's a problem in Texas, there isn't a problem in California.
Wow. So purposeful policies wreaking havoc on the community, and we'll just hide it. Perfect. Thank you. Ms. Moran, you've previously said that President Biden hasn't really showed any concern for anything the American people have voiced on this issue. It's like he's sitting in an ivory tower and we're just down here. He's not connected with the everyday person. Can you talk more about your frustrations with the administration and their handling of the border?
Yes. Since my daughter's death, but also since we learned that it was an illegal immigrant that they've accused of murdering her, the Biden-Harris administration has not reached out to our family to offer condolences. And I've noticed that when speaking about the border policy, they would rather look in the other direction, kind of like a little kid. If I don't see you, you don't see me. And I think that they are trying to avoid admitting that there is an issue, even though tens of thousands of people a day, women and children, are being attacked. Not all of them are in the news because some of them are not being murdered, they're just being attacked. I have people come up to me all the time because I know I'm Rachel's mom, and they'll say, a guy came up from behind me, grabbed me around the neck, and tried to pull me down to the ground. But I got away, and I went to the police, and I told the police, and when they arrested the person, they found out that he had already attacked several other women. So it's happening on a daily basis. Not all of it is in the news. And so this issue is bigger than people think. And it's not just the southern border, because we're almost 2,000 miles from the southern border. It's every state, every county, every city. People are living in fear. And just because you ignore it and don't acknowledge it doesn't mean that it's not true.
Thank you. I yield to the ranking member for his 5 minutes of questioning.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman. Sheriff Hathaway, can you expound a little more on how you see the use of people coming to this country being integrated into the economy of our country, and whether or not you've seen a positive impact from there coming to this country?
Yes, definitely. I'd be glad to. The people coming across are coming across to work. They're not coming as an invasion to import an army, to have a secret army embedded in the United States to attack America and attack American values. They're coming here to work. They're people of faith. A lot of them that I see are from Latin America, very family-oriented people, and they actually reduce price inflation. When you add productivity to the economy, you see help wanted signs all over the United States. If you add productivity to the economy, it makes the economy more productive and price inflation is reduced. So yeah, it is definitely a benefit, overall net benefit to our country. And I hate to say that, I hate to use the R word, but it's the 800-pound gorilla in the room, the racism word. There's a xenophobic aspect to this. There was never a proposal to build a wall on the northern border, on the Canadian border. There was never any intent to aggressively enforce Title 42 on the Canadian border. So, there is this kind of racist component to it that we kind of all ignore, but it's there smoldering in the background.
So I represent an agricultural district, and if it were not for immigrant labor in that district, we would have difficult times. The majority of the farmers who utilize that labor, law-abiding citizens, but they will tell you that we can't gin the cotton, we can't harvest the potatoes, we can't plant the seedlings for trees. They're just tough labor. My contractors tell me that the labor necessary to do roofing and other carpentry kind of skills, it's difficult to get regular people. So I think we have to put some kind of comprehensive immigration package together. In the interim, we have to protect our citizens, and I agree with that. The Senate took the leadership to try to fashion a bill that I referenced in my opening statement. We didn't even get a chance to consider it. That's so unfortunate. The legislative process says you agree, disagree, and somewhere in the middle is an agreement. We didn't get to that point. Just for the record, let me say that in the last appropriation bill, we had 22,000 Border Patrol agents in there. A majority of the Democrats on this committee voted to support that. However, my Republican colleagues didn't. So I just think that if we want to help, let's give the men and women who work the border every day the resources they need. We continue to do that. We continue to support it. All of us have been adversely impacted by the criminal element. I was a county supervisor before I came to Congress. I understand the burdens you have, but I also understand that federal, state, and locals working together can overcome it. Immigration is primarily a federal responsibility, and we have to do what we need to do to make that happen. Some of us vote to put the resources there at every opportunity, but the politics override reality, and that's the challenge that a lot of us have. So I look forward to legislation being put forward to this body that we can continue to address the fentanyl challenges that come. My sheriffs talk to me about it.
While Trump is looking out for billionaires,
You're rich as hell. We're going to give you tax cuts.
Kamala Harris is looking out for you.
As president, I will lower the cost of everyday needs like health care and housing and groceries.
Was it really God's wish to keep?
We're actually going to start wrapping up in the next 20 minutes. This is a 3-hour live, so we're going to leave the link for you guys. I do want to say thank you for being here today with us. We're about to start the video back, listen to a little bit more, but this was actually a 3-hour hearing, and we're going to sign off in about a half an hour. Continue to speak your piece. We appreciate it. It's needed. No more politics.
To offset it. Mr. Height, the challenge for removal is we're a nation of laws. As you know, you worked in the department. You just can't stop people and send them back. You got to give them that. And we've sent back more people during this administration than in recent memory. So we're trying. But if there are some things we can do, I look forward to working with my Republican colleagues on trying to make it happen. I yield back.
Gentleman yields. I now recognize Mr. D'Esposito, out of order by request due to his time constraints, for 5 minutes of questioning.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. And if I may, I think the video that Ms. Moran wanted to play is available. I'd like to yield her 30 seconds of my time.
Open borders are often portrayed as compassionate and virtuous, but there is nothing compassionate about allowing violent criminals into our country and robbing children of their mother. Joe Biden and his designated border czar, Kamala Harris, opened our borders to him and others like him, empowering them to victimize the innocent.
Reset the clock to 5 minutes. That was really the committee's fault for not allowing her to play that. Mr. D'Esposito, I don't expect you to yield that. That was our failure. You're now recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Chief, I know that was mentioned in your opening statement about human tragedies that have been experienced by migrants on their journey to the border. And I'd like to specifically talk about those, especially the female migrants, the ones that have been taken over by gangs and others trying to get them across the southern border. You said that, quote, "It's very common that female migrants are raped during the process. Most of them believe it's just part of the payment as they go up. It's unfortunately very regular within the population. Can you describe to the committee your interactions with migrants over the past 3.5 years and share with us some of the most shocking things that you've learned or are willing to share?"
There's a number of them that I would. One of the key ones from San Diego is that when we had a large amount of undocumented minors coming into the country, we started to see recruiters in Mexico that would go around within the Tijuana area, because the migrants would stage in Mexico before they came into the United States. Recruiters would go around within Tijuana and recruit teenage women to come to the United States. And then they would leave their families. Oftentimes they had traveled to Tijuana with their families. They would leave their families behind, come to the United States, claim they were unaccompanied minors, and they would be put up in the facilities that the charities had set aside for them in San Diego. Once they had been put up, they're not held in detention. It's just a room. They were given a phone number to call. And then a recruiter would come down, often from Oakland or Los Angeles, and pick them up. These young women were then brought up and forced into prostitution, oftentimes in the Oakland and Los Angeles area and other places within the country. We had active cases going on, but because we did not have the resources, because we were inundated with so many people, we couldn't follow up. And this was actively going on within our area during the time frame.
And how many years did you spend in the Customs and Border Patrol?
Over 25.
And in those 25 years, is this the worst that you've seen in the last 3.5 years?
Yes.
So it's safe to say that the disastrous policies that were implemented by both Joe Biden and Kamala Harris have led to some of the really most disgusting actions against women migrants along our southern border.
It has taken so much time away from the agents that they can't deal with those issues.
And obviously, there's a negative impact to the agents when they're dealing with situations like this as well.
Yes, dealing with the absolute despair and the misery. The vast majority of the people coming are good, normal people that have gone through extremely bad situations.
So Ms. Morin mentioned in her opening statement that she lives 1,800 miles from the southern border. And she said that in the country that we live in right now, if your city is a sanctuary city, these are her words, not mine, but I agree with them, that you are not safe. She said that if a city is a sanctuary city, you are not safe. 1,800 miles she lives from the border, and we heard the terrible story of the murder of her daughter. Every state, a border state, every city, a border city. We just commemorated the 23rd anniversary of the September 11th attacks. And you mentioned, Chief, in your statement, border patrol zones across Texas, Arizona, California had no agent present for weeks and months at a time. Those who did not want to be caught could simply walk in. Quote, we have no idea who and what entered our country over this time. Throughout 2022 and 2023, I sent agents to Texas and Arizona to count gotaways. Those sectors could not even put agents in the field to see what they missed. What information do we have on the millions of known gotaways that have entered this country?
None.
Zero information of millions of people, some of which have found to be on the terror watch list. We have zero information.
Correct.
Thank you, Chief, and thank you all for being here. Mr. Chairman, I yield back.
The gentleman yields. I now recognize Mr. Correa, the gentleman from California, for his 5 minutes question.
I want to thank our witnesses for being here today. And Mr. Chairman, I want to take a moment to also thank our Secret Service for protecting former President Trump. I serve on the Select Committee investigating the assassination attempt. And I can tell you right now that I want to make sure that all candidates running for presidency are well protected. According to the FBI and DHS, the biggest issue right now is domestic terrorism in this country. I have a chart here that shows all of the domestic terrorism attacks in this country today. And for the record, Mr. Chairman, I also have a couple of articles. One, just today from the LA Times saying second attempt on former President Trump sounds alarm abroad. People around the world are concerned that our American democracy is at a breaking point. Another one here from political.
All right, guys, what I'm going to do is start to bring this broadcast to an end. I am going to share the link with this actual live for you guys if you want to watch the rest of the hearing. It's about a 3-hour hearing. So once they start, sensationalizing stuff and, getting a little political, that's when I say we'll sign off and we'll let everybody else be the judge. But I did want to touch this topic as far as the migration issue or immigrant issue, whatever way you want to call it. It is an American problem. This should not be a Democrat versus Republican thing. This should be focused, in my opinion, on our economic state. Is this sustainable? Where are the resources actually going? Are us as American getting resources? Before all of this was happening, we were already suffering. After the whole lockdown thing, trying to get ourselves reacclimated. And you heard that gentleman say something to the nature like basically they need to keep the borders open because there's certain jobs that needs to be done. That's one of the things that I talk about here. Our educational system doesn't even focus in on those type of jobs that he's talking about, having those trade schools and things like that. So this is a broader conversation, and I'm glad that we can have it here in opposition or in even agreeing with each other. We're going to continue to hit you with these trending topics. I want to say thank you so much for being here with Grace Levi. Please join the family, hit the like button. We're going to be showing a lot of different political topics here. So stay tuned. All right? Stay tuned.
I could not be here breathing and be comfortable if I was really as bad as they was making it. You know, nobody could be around me. So for me to be this calm, I must have some kind of inner peace. And my inner peace is knowing that once everybody take the time to really see what type of person I am, you'd be surprised that I stuck around this long. I have to make the life that I do live as happy as I can and try to do the best with what I have. You know, live the best life I can live, be as happy as I can be. Nothing is perfect for anybody. I don't know.
Boys, I swear, I think I figured it out. You know why they don't want us redneck brothers and sisters and the hood brothers and sisters getting along? You know why? Because we'd be unstoppable. I'm telling you right now, we would shut shit down.
The real estate market often seems like a distant world where only an elite of experts is successful. In a time of so much uncertainty in the air and bad news, realist investing can seem intimidating. But today, I want to tell you that if you make the right decision today, you can enter the real estate market from the back door. Bad credit record? No credit at all? Do you dread the idea of having a home loan? Do you dream of owning investment properties? You are in the right place and right time, because we have created a program which is a tax lien and deed investment online course of only 14 hours. This course is specially designed for people like you who have big dreams. You will learn at your own pace and everything from your home computer. This is your chance. Join our membership for $19.99 a year. What are you waiting for? Visit our website primetimehomebuyerBuyback.org and sign up today for course access.